Broken tonight as a Troup County pastor sits in jail facing child molestation charges. Atlanta News First Carly Barnett went to LaGrange, where that church is located. She's outside the jail with more on these disturbing allegations.
Police would not say if Russell Tusing knew the child through church in an effort to protect her identity, but police say the alleged crimes date back as far as 2 years ago. LaGrange police say Russell Tusing has been charged with sexual battery and child molestation. The 44-year-old is accused of molesting a 13-year-old girl. Police confirmed Tusing was pastor at Sovereign Grace Church in LaGrange. The alleged crimes, police say, were reported in February, but the allegations date back as far as 2022. Tusing was arrested and booked into the Troup County Jail last Friday. Jail records show his status as not bondable. It is unclear if he is still employed by the church, but his name is not listed on the church staff page. When we tried to call,
"The number you reached is not in service. This is a recording."
Their phone is offline. Small groups met at the church Wednesday night. That's where we spoke in person with church staffers who say they could not speak on camera, but directed our questions to an email address. Atlanta News First has reached out. At this point, they have not returned our request for comment. In Troup County, Carly Barnett, Atlanta News First.
New video.